Welcome back to The Ballad of Dena and Andrea, a podcast showcasing songs and conversations in reaction to the story of Andrea Yates and Dena Schlosser, two women who murdered their children in the early 2000s. I wrote an album based on their story in the style of Appalachian murder ballads to create empathetic myths about these mothers. And with this podcast, I've been able to sit down with friends to talk openly about issues that come up from these songs, like religion, mental health, misogyny, our failing justice system, motherhood, grief, and more. Each episode, I'll tell a bit of the story, bring in a friend to chat, and share a song. Please note, in this podcast, we will discuss postpartum psychosis and depression, domestic abuse, suicide, infanticide, and religious zealotry. Please take care of yourself while listening. Also note, when I use the word women, I aim to include anyone who has identified as a woman, female, or femme at any point in their journey. Okay, here we go. Andrea Yates had repeatedly asked her husband not to leave her alone with her kids. She knew something was wrong and that she wanted to hurt them. He left anyway and said his mother would be there soon. In under an hour, she drowned all of her children. She dressed them up, lined them out on the bed. The following song is a lullaby/murder ballad. It's a song from an imagined perspective of Andrea Yates immediately after the drownings.
Wasn't much here for you. Dry landscape, barren it seemed. So flat you could see forever, my dear. No place for my baby's big dreams. Nowhere to go, born into disgrace. A diamond in spite of the dust. So pure in the light, couldn't spare you the fight. So I had to let you go. Let you go, so long, let you go. So long, you're never coming back. So long, let you go. So long, you're never coming back. Drown out my demons, tiny soul in their snare. Little boy, don't be scared. Talking out loud to ghosts, oh heavenly host. It's so quiet in this old house. There's a calling far deeper than home. I'll make the call, sit with you on the bed, look at you in your Sunday best. A vessel devoid, lips smiling and blue. Your angels will know what to do. I'll see you again, wash clean of my sin. Dispensation for saving young bones. A mother knows best, and I put you to rest with a calling far deeper than home. Let you go. So long, let you go. So
recently I've been thinking a lot about community and what that actually means. And we're going to have to lean hard into it in the coming years for healthcare, for abortion, for safety, for housing. I think one place we can start is to listen to what the people around us, the people suffering and the people doing the work, listen to what they are asking for. What are they telling you that they need? What can we do? Specifics. And the next guest and I get into that a bit in terms of new mothers. And I just think we can extend that out to our larger communities. My friend and I also spoke about mental health and postpartum resources and, quote, the utter darkness and the blinding light of motherhood, unquote. And she sings a lullaby to calm the mamas. We will talk about healthcare, but we are not doctors. Please consult your doctors for any actual medical advice. We conducted this interview over a streaming service, so you might hear some weird overlaps where it sounds like we're not in the same room, because sadly, we were not, but hopefully someday again soon. My friend, actor, writer, creator, performance artist, beautiful human being, and mother, Caroline Kingsley Moffat. If you could, would you explain what you do?
Maybe I should close my window.
Well, you live in New York City. We know that much.
I live in Brooklyn, South Slope, Brooklyn. I'll give you a clean take on that. Hi, Becky.
Hi. Oh, tell the world a little bit about what you do.
Sure. So I'm a mother to a 3-year-old. I am a writer, actor, and performance artist. I host a show called The Violet Hour, and I host it as a character who's a horny suffragette space-time traveler named Winnifred Coombe. Becky's been on my show.
It's so good. And it's not just funny, it's educational in a way that you won't be able to tell.
Yeah. We try to really slip the pill into the peanut butter, as it were. It's like a fun educational show for adults. I'm also writing a show right now that's like it's going to be like sort of an immersive one-person show called The Occult of the Illumamami. And it's like basically where everyone in the audience is getting inducted into this secret society of powerful mothers, the Illumamami.
Oh my gosh, awesome.
So it's like the idea is, I mean, it's a funny show, but it's also kind of giving people who are not mothers or primary caretakers like a glimpse into the agony and the ecstasy of being a mother.
Oh, that's so great. And it's such a good segue for the beginning of the questions.
Yeah.
This is the first one. It's kind of a softball.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about any weird shit that non-parents don't know that happens in the birth or after birth process? Basically, what landed in your shoe?
Well, my mucal plug landed in my shoe when my water broke, which is just, I feel like, the tip of the iceberg with mothering and giving birth. There's so many things that like it's happening to your body in real time. And then you're like, what the hell? No one told me about this. And there's stuff that people who've given birth a bunch of times don't know about birth. Like apparently your butt crack turns purple when you're ready to push.
Whoa.
And like those cups that like change color when this drink is cold enough. Like there's a line that goes up your butt crack that basically lets someone like a doula or midwife or whoever is watching you give birth know like, oh, she's dilated enough, so now it's time to push. Because another thing that like people who haven't given birth and many who don't even know that like there's a difference between pushing and labor. Did you know that?
I figured labor was the general term, and then pushing was
so labor is the work you have to do to open up your cervix so that you can push the baby through. So if you think about your womb and as like one of those like Chinese paper lanterns, you know?
Sure.
It's gotta open. So like the top of your cervix, this teeny little pinhole gets filled with mucus because it gets bigger as your womb grows. And when you go into labor, that mucus plug comes out, and then your whole, and I'm sure midwives are going to come for me because I'm using all the wrong terms and like not really explaining this right. But basically there's a difference. Like you don't push the whole time, which is something that I thought you did. Labor is very laboring. It's hard. It's really hard work, but it's basically these contractions that are widening and shortening your, womb so that the hole is big enough for you to then push out. So sometimes people will labor for like 3 days and then they'll push for a half an hour, or sometimes they'll push for several hours. They're just two different things, which is something I didn't think about until I was like literally like being coached on how to give birth in the weeks before I gave birth.
Right. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Does the mucal plug, is that what, when it pops out, is that what breaks your water? Is that what like is holding the water in?
It can sometimes. So my water broke like bam, like in the movies. So
Whoa.
My baby was face down, like was feet down, which is called breech.
Yeah, I was breech.
Yeah. And you can't, I was planning to have a home birth, and you are not allowed to have a home birth in the state of New York if your baby is breech. So I was doing everything to get her to flip around. I had, acupuncture. They did these things that I forget what the real name is, but we called them toe cigars. They like light these like bundles of incense by my toes to try to get her to flip. I was doing all these special exercises. She would not flip. And then she basically stomped the cork out and was like, I'm ready to come. But not everyone's water breaks like it does in the movies. A lot of times they just start being in labor where they're just feeling really weird, or they barf a lot, or they're feeling contractions. And sometimes people break your water for you. I mean, it's all over the place. And a lot of times the mucal plug, like that was a cool, dramatic, cinematic thing that happened to me, that my mucus plug shot into my shoe. But sometimes it would just be part of the mess of giving birth, which also, by the way, includes poo 90% of the time, which is another thing that we don't like to talk about, but that's there.
Of course it is.
Of course it is. If you think about all the pressure on top of your guts being pushed down, anything that's in the way, honey, it's coming out.
It's coming out. Well, and you're pushing, and yes, we can tell those muscles apart occasionally.
Yeah, but not then, not at that point, not when you're around.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that people don't talk about a lot is like the placenta, or the afterbirth, which is like this personal pan-sized pizza of stuff that's kept your baby alive that you have to push out or have pulled out of you after you give birth, which is, a whole other thing. But
that's all the nutrients and stuff, right? That the baby was living on in the packet.
Yeah.
Did you eat
most mammals eat theirs afterwards?
Oh, yes. Did you?
I didn't. I wasn't allowed to eat mine. I would really have liked to have, but because I had a C-section, because she was breech, they have to do these tests to say like, well, why did she come out early? Like, was there something? So they had run all kinds of like dye and stuff through my placenta to see if there was something that happened that made her come out a little early. Yeah. So they were like, we could give it to you, but you couldn't eat it. It'd be really weird. So
you could just play with it.
Like, if you want it for like spiritual purposes. And then I was like, yeah, I actually do. And they're like, oh, actually, sorry, we forgot. We threw it out.
Oh, no. Did you have any sort of like, I mean, it is such a ritual in itself, the whole process. But like, did you have something for yourself that you did as sort of a ritual?
I had this amazing thing that I asked for, which I feel like is important to say, because I think a lot of people in our culture think like, oh, if someone doesn't offer something up to me, then I don't deserve it. But like, I asked my friends, I asked my little coven to basically throw me like a baby ritual before I gave birth. Like I had like my, I was pregnant during COVID. So I had my like, Zoom baby shower that was like, oh, we get these presents or whatever. But I also asked my weirdest witchy friends to throw me like a ritual. And
that's great.
My friend Eve really like was like, yep, I got you. And like made this amazing, it was also Zoom because it was, deep COVID. They also sent me this like rock that they blessed. And I think that one of the best parts about the ritual, which I think like, even if you're like not into woo-woo stuff that you should do before you give birth, is like get your closest friends together and just like say everything that you're afraid of out loud, like, cause I didn't realize how many things I had that I was just like, oh, what if I don't like my baby? What if she doesn't like me? What, like all these like deep fears that you don't even know are in there until you like, I was, and of course, I was like hugely hormonal and just was like, I'm scared, like, but my friends really hold this beautiful container for me to like say all those things that I was scared about it. And then I'm sure we like burned them or something. I don't remember.
Right.
And then they all gave me like blessings for her, which really did help me. And they like gave me this little stone that I could hold on to, during birth, which was really, I mean, I'm so lucky that I had that. And I think a lot of people will say that like your mental state going into birth helps a lot. Like if you think about it, like taking a huge crap, you don't want anyone in there who you don't feel totally comfortable with. You know what I mean? Like it's more than that. You're opening your body up and shoving something out of it. So if there's people who are giving you weird vibes around there, or if you're like not sure you feel safe, like you're going to clam up. So you need to make sure that you feel like things are pretty cool to be able to give birth.
Oh, and I bet that just so rarely happens.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. I mean, I shouldn't. I should assume that. I think I can make an educated guess on that. Yeah.
Yeah, we can make an educated guess. And we can hope that we're moving towards a world where all birthing people have a wonderful supported space to go into.
Yeah.
Which is certainly not the case in the United States right now.
No. Do you have your own story to tell about postpartum depression or your mental health journey around that?
Well, I will say that I was really prepared about my mental health before giving birth, because a history of mental health problems in my family. I had a pretty serious bobble with depression and stuff before giving birth when I moved to New York. And so like I had already, before even considering getting pregnant, I had like talked a lot with my team, like my health professional team. I mean, I'm so lucky that I have all these resources. I know I'm like the 1% of this, but like, I had a psychiatrist, I had a couples therapist, I had all these people. And by the way, my couples therapist is part of something called the Motherhood Center here in New York, which is an amazing resource. And it offers, I think, even like inpatient stuff that keeps mothers with their babies for postpartum stuff. It offers like support groups. It's like this amazing place for mothers who are struggling with postpartum stuff. And my psychiatrist was like, I forget what her title is, but she's like women's health. She specializes in that. So I was really on the lookout for it. I also saw the movie Tully, which is terrifying.
Oh my God, I love that movie so much. And it's a movie you can't talk about. It's like, what?
Yeah.
But everyone watch it. Everyone who is interested in this podcast, go and watch it.
Tully. And also like make sure you have like a blankie or something to snuggle afterwards.
Woof,
yes. But so I was really prepared for the eventuality of especially during lockdown. Like I was like, I know postpartum psychosis is a thing. That's like scary to me. Yeah. So I had a lot of resources. I also was gifted, because my husband had to go back to work pretty soon after I gave birth, and very full time, a baby nurse, which is like pretty common in New York for the very, very lucky people who can afford it, to just have a woman who knows a lot about babies live with you. And so this woman, Angeloa, moved in with us when we called her on our way. We were like, we're going to give birth now. And she's like, great, pack my bag, see you in a couple days. She moved in with us and stayed for 6 weeks. So I had, even though my family couldn't be around me because it was COVID, I had the one, the top best support in terms of what money can buy to support a postpartum woman.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine, with all of those resources, I still was like bugging, to say the least, But yeah, I mean, I had a lot of support, and my mind was prepared for that. Yeah. I think most women think like, oh, that might not happen to me. They don't think about like this huge change in hormones and this loneliness and the compare and contrast to like what motherhood is sold as and how hard and isolating it is. Especially like, I think there's this like myth out there that like, oh, you'll know what to do with your baby. No, you won't. Like they're like little things, and there's all these things we've learned as a culture about like how babies need to sleep and what kind of things they need and how to deal with them, that like it's not intuitive.
No.
There's all these things on Instagram like what to pack for your hospital bag, or like la 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 la. And one of my friends right before I gave birth, who had just given birth, was like, oh, pack a sports bra you can cut holes in, or get a nursing bra. And I was like, oh, okay, why? And she was like, otherwise, if your milk hasn't come in, you're going to need to pump. And the one like 45 minutes you'll have to rest between feeding your baby, changing it, and getting to go to sleep, you'll have to physically hold pumps onto your breasts. If you have a sports bra or a pumping bra, you can like close your eyes and relax for those moments while you're being milked, basically. That like saved my life because my baby was a little early. My milk hadn't come in. So I had to like, when I wasn't feeding, I had to be pumping. And my husband had to be feeding her formula with a syringe and his finger dripping it into her mouth. Like it was a full-time job to feed her at first because she was a little early. But she wasn't like hooked up to tubes or anything. She was cooked and ready to come out. Yeah, but she did lose a significant amount of weight after she was born, which all newborns do.
I was going to say
it was hard to feed her up again.
Yeah. Yikes.
But it's still really awesome. We talk about the ride home from the hospital as the most psychedelic experience ever. And my sister picked my husband and my baby up from Lenox Hill when we went home. She literally still talks about how high we were. We were like, whoa, look at this city. Look at the leaves on the trees. Like, can you believe we live here and this is our baby? Like it was like such an amazing, like the world has totally changed experience bringing your baby home.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That would be a trip. How did having a baby change your relationship to your body or your creativity? I want to ask you all of those things.
Yes. So I can roll on all these topics for a long time.
Roll, baby.
My relationship with my body first of all, my body has just totally changed. I would say, flat-chested with poofy nipples before I gave birth. And now I have a solid D cup bordering into a double D, which like if you told 12-year-old Caroline, like if you have a baby, you will grow a huge rack, I'd be like, teen mom, sign me up. But yeah, so I have enormous boobs and my weight is much higher. So I have a totally different body shape than I had before. I mean, I used to have like a sort of long rectangular build. And now I'm more Venus de Milo than anything. No, what's the Venus de Willendorf? Venus of Willendorf. So just like a round blob with big old titties. It's a huge adjustment. I mean, clothes fit me as a similarly big racked person. You know that like having boobs is a whole thing, you know, like
oh my
you
gosh.
have to find things to hold them and put them in, and the clothes that you have before didn't fit. So my body is completely different, but luckily physically it's pretty much all aesthetics. Like a lot of women are really, you know, ripped up and have a lot of like incontinence issues and stuff like that.
Boy.
Like for me, it's pretty much just like, it's a different shape because I had such an amazing C-section. I don't feel significantly different on the inside physically.
Sure.
I'm trying to parse out how becoming a mother has changed me creatively versus how it's changed my career as an artist, because I think those are two different things.
For sure. Yeah.
I mean, I think just the demands of motherhood, even again, with all of the resources that I have, they just take away your time, you know, like you don't have the space to be creative in the way that you used to be. And you have to fight tooth and nail to get that space for yourself, because you have to set up childcare, or you have to, you know, find a physical space you can be where even if you have childcare or your partner is helpful, that you can like go and they won't be like climbing up the stairs to find you and be with you. My career, I think it's hard to tell how motherhood has affected it. I think that I mean, there were a lot of really good things for me giving birth during COVID. One of which was like, I felt like, well, nothing's happening anyway.
Exactly. You know?
Might as well. But then, you know, the fact of being a mother and just being a parent, I think my producer, Jordan, has become a father of 2 kids since the pandemic too. Like we don't produce the show as much as we did because we're busy being parents, you know.
Right. You're making
another full-time job.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say that's how it's changed my creativity. But then on the plus side, like this I have this drive to tell the story that I think like most women don't have the time and resources to tell because they're so underwater, or most caretakers, primary caretakers don't. And I sort of feel like because I'm so lucky that I don't have to work a 9-to-5 job and can put my kid in like a really awesome daycare, that I'm like, I really want to tell this story. Like, I feel like people don't know how, like my friend, actually my producer Jordan's wife, was like, I really want you to tell the story of like the utter darkness and the blinding light of motherhood. And I was like, whoa, yeah, I do too. And and I feel like if someone can do it, it'll be like Pen 15, where it's like, that felt like opening this like amazing treasure chest to something that's like, so like, oh yeah, we all felt that way when we were teens, you know?
Yeah.
No one really like took the time to write that story of like how that feels to be a 12-year-old girl.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen a ton of art, I'm sure it's out there, about like how it feels to be a new mom. I mean, Fleischman is in Trouble was really great. Did you ever read the book Night Bitch?
No.
It's really great. There's a series coming out. I think Amy Adams is starring in it. But it's about a mother whose like husband is like mainly working all the time. She's like sort of alone with her, I think, 2-year-old. And she starts turning into a dog at night.
Oh, whoa.
It's so good. And it's like a funny satire, and the weirdness of it like lets you into what it feels like, the feralness of being a mother, you know, like, because you do feel like I'm dripping blood and dripping milk, and then I try to just hold it together and be a normal human in front of people.
Make jokes about wine.
Yeah, like mommy o'clock, you know, this feeling of like, I pushed something out of my fucking vagina, and now I'm just walking around like nothing ever happened.
Yeah. Quickly too, right? It's like, okay, you're done with that. Like,
yeah.
Now
I mean, that's another thing that I think is really interesting that no one told me is like, now they're saying 6 weeks is sort of, people go like, okay, you're done, go back to work, put your baby in daycare and like get on with it. But they're finding that like, first of all, your body never goes back. The cells of your baby live on inside your body. So you are physically changed. Your brain has changed. Your body will never be the same after giving birth. And also the postpartum period that they used to say was like, 6 weeks is sort of more like 2 or 3 years, they're finding out, like where you're still sort of like, Yeah.
Well, I feel like at least in the case of Dena and Andrea, their depression got worse with like every baby that they had.
Well, because they didn't have time to reset their bodies, right? Like, how close were their babies?
Oh gosh, you know what? Close. There was no like big separation. It was within years.
I mean, I would be really.
What else would it be in? Within weeks? No. But yeah, it was like, I think that 2, 5, 7. Andrea's kids were 6 months old. 2, 3, 5, and 7.
Actually, the statistics are less like if you're going to have postpartum psychosis, you generally have it after the first child.
Really?
Because it's the first time your brain has experienced that chemical imbalance.
Oh.
But it's also, I mean, it's still likely after each birth. And like, I think obviously we can see how like all the plates just have to keep spinning. So if you have 2 toddlers and another baby, like it's like,
oh my gosh,
it seems like you're going to go crazy.
Yeah. Yes. And with no help and isolated, and totally. in their case, yeah. And
no help and isolated, and with this expectation of like, do it. You're a mom.
That's your job. That's your duty.
Say like, oh, mamas are superheroes. It's like, no, they're not. They're just like put upon. They just, I mean, like,
exactly.
We are superheroes. Yes, true. And also, people can lift cars if someone's pinched underneath a car. Doesn't mean we should pinch people under cars so that they can lift them.
Right. Yeah.
That postpartum brain change. I mean, look, I'm no neuroscientist, but I've traded stories with every mother I know of like the bizarre paranoias that we had postpartum. Like for me, it was like, well, we have a cabin that's in Trump country. My husband is a comedian and he has played Eric Trump, publicly. And so Trump people are going to come to our lake house and murder us. That's how it's going to go down. And I'm going to have to hold my baby and go like, please, please take pity on me and my baby. I had a friend who was like really worried that AC units were going to fall out of windows when she walked down the street in, you know, New York with her newborn. Like really, like that was her fear. Another friend, like she had this set of stairs that she was like, I don't think I can be able to go up and down the stairs with the baby because I'll drop the baby and the baby, you know, like they're all the, like your brain is primed to look for danger. And the stories that I've heard about these awful stories about mothers and fathers, by the way, killing their offspring, is sometimes it's like that instinct gone wrong where it's like, oh, I have to. There was some dad who like killed his kids and he was like, I had to save them from the beast or something. It was like some like.
Well, that Christian surfer guy who took his kids to Mexico and killed them because he thought they were snakes. They had serpent blood.
That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Well, and I think there's also the real version of that, of like mothers during slavery would kill their babies to be like, I'm not going to make my kid go through this, you know, like I'm going to actually save them.
Yeah. Wow.
And it's funny because like I feel okay talking about this right now because it's like daylight and I knew we were going to go there.
Yeah.
Stuff like this is really hard for, I think, moms. I don't know that'll ever go away. Like I don't enjoy murder shows or cult shows anymore because things bad happening to children feels bad on a visceral level that like I'm like inclined to be like I've become a pussy since giving birth, but like that's like no, like that's me. Like my brain changed to protect my children and children around me, you know, like that's superpower, but it does make me more sensitive to like graphic images or thinking about things like that. It's really hard for me to take in images like that.
Going back to the Christian surfer, there is just this real big difference for me between men and women doing it. Maybe specifically because the setup and the support for the women and what happened, like they were actually saying, help me, I'm going to do this, please help me and help me save my kids. And like that guy was a QAnon guy.
Tell me about what they were saying. Tell me about what they were.
Well, they tried to kill themselves multiple times. So they clearly had depression. They were on medication and were taken off of it by their husbands by the order of their church because mental illness is Satan's work, but then so is medication. So
what year is this again?
2001 and 2004. Yeah.
So crazy. In my mind, I'm like, well, we're talking about the 1800s. We're talking about, you know, like, I'm like, yeah.
No, preachers are currently preaching this shit.
Yeah.
Of like women are the daughters of Eve. And that's sort of specific in terms of the whole grand scheme of postpartum. But it's hard for me to separate the like Christian subjugation of women and mothers going crazy and saying that God told them to do it because that's how they're being set up.
But going back to snake dad versus moms, I mean, I think there's also something about like the ownership and the body that carried those babies. Like there's something just meaner about like, I carried those babies for 9 months. I fed them probably with my body and you're going to take them to Mexico and kill them? Like, no. Like,
no.
You know what I mean? Like I think about that as like, it's like a woman's babies. It's all of her like labor in all senses of the word, you know, like
it's literal cells.
Yeah. So, I mean, yes, dads are very involved and can be very involved and whatever, but that's my take on that whole thing of like,
oh, I brought you into this world, I can take you out.
Yeah, totally.
My head is just swimming with like, oh, what? But
well, you know, it's crazy how not often we talk about any of this stuff. Like I feel so like blah, 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 like I word salad because and I think this happens anytime birthing people get together and like start sharing stories. It's like it's all we want to talk about because it's a huge part of our lives that are like not really welcomed into other places.
Yeah. We want women to shut up no matter what. And especially we like make motherhood this thing that's so isolated and so far away.
Yeah.
That like, oh, it's so annoying to hear talk about kids or talk about being pregnant. And it's not. It's only that way because we put a judgment on it.
And I don't understand why that is and I've thought about this and I'm like, okay, so I'm very confused between the two extremes of like, we need more people for the world and the economy to go on. Like, people are worried about birth rates, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then also we're overpopulated. Like, sometimes I get this, like, well, I did this play and I wrote this, we called it the monologue of the play, where I was like sort of having this rant where it was like, you know, I didn't bring a baby into the world to like have it be like suffocating in its own plastic and shit, like, because diapers never degrade. Basically, they take like 400 years to degrade, and the eco guilt of not using cloth diapers is crazy. But cloth diapers are generally not accepted at daycare, so it's like you can't afford a village unless you can put them in day. It's just this whole crazy thing.
Like,
Being a mom is crazy.
Yeah, those systems that are already in place that are just it just sucks that's an added shame that's put upon women.
Oh, that's what I was gonna say. Is that like the end of that monologue was like, maybe people are mad at mothers and want us to shut up because we brought more people here and we all sort of know like this is not a good place. You know, it like brings up our guilt about like,
that's a fascinating
because like there is this sense of like, you bring your baby onto a plane, it's like, fuck you, why'd you bring your fucking baby on this plane? Like, shut it up, like.
I'm like, but wouldn't it be helpful if we had kid only planes and adult?
I get it. Like, I don't like hearing kids cry either, but there is this vitriol against like,
it's towards the moms, right?
Right,
Sorry.
right. And that was one of the best tips I ever got was like, if you're going on a plane, make your husband walk around with the baby because everyone will be like, oh, look at you, like. But I do think it is like, it is this feeling of, I wonder at the bottom of it if it is like, why'd you bring more people here? It already sucks, I don't know. Yeah. Maybe that's one thing about it. There's this famous Instagram mom who like helps you get your baby to sleep. And she posted this thing that was like, remind yourself that no one is entitled to a child-free existence, which I think is like I don't think that that's the assumption at all. I think the assumption is everyone feels entitled to a child-free existence, which again, sort of like is like ableism, yeah.
There are people of all ages in this world and we should celebrate it all and live together. Yes.
Yeah. But people don't want to be inconvenienced by a baby crying. And like, by the way, if you're annoyed about a baby crying, the mom does not want the baby to be fucking crying either. Like, it's not like she's being lazy. She doesn't she's panicking. She's sweating. She's crying on the inside, trying to calm the baby down because she knows everyone is mad at her and she doesn't want her baby to cry. The discomfort you feel from a baby crying on the plane that you're in, that mother is, everything in her body is tuned to be hit like a pitchfork with which each one of those cries. Like, she will hear phantom cries of that cry for probably a year and a half.
Oh my God.
It's not like she is like not noticing it. It's not like someone's having like a stinky fart sandwich and having it and not caring about whatever else is going on. Like, she also wishes her baby would shut the fuck up.
Exactly. I feel like that, and maybe that's just my age, because I remember when I was younger, I was not cool about it.
Shut it up. No, I was too. I'm so keenly aware of like what a little asshole I was before I had kids. Like, especially friends with kids of like, oh, I didn't want to hear babies crying. I also would be like, well, you have to get the baby back for its bedtime. Like, couldn't you just like let it sleep in the stroller or like keep it up? Like, who cares? And now I'm like, no, like, that's for everyone's mental health. Like, that makes me scream a lot and no one will be happy. What my community meant for me at the time I gave birth was because of COVID, there was like a pretty hardcore moms Zoom group that then morphed into like a hangout group. And like, we still sort of almost constantly are chatting on a WhatsApp chain. Like, I had a community. It's interesting because like, I had this group of mothers who were doing it at the exact same time as me. And I think there was only like one mom who had done it before in our group. So we're constantly like, this is happening. Is this weird? Constantly checking in with each other. And then at a certain point, it's kind of like a freshman floor of college where you're like, we're all best friends. We hang out all the time. And then at a certain point you go like, oh, actually the only thing we really had in common was like, we were all here on this floor at the same time. Like, I think like this like big group who like, we still text a lot. Like, we're not all best friends, but we were on the same freshman floor. So we'll always have that like bond. We all gave birth at like the same time. And used to literally talk every single second, which was
Right.
cool.
I love that analogy because it's like life changes for everybody always. And like, that's that time. It doesn't mean you are stuck. Like, yeah.
I think about this a lot too. I think people need access to babies and children and old people, and they don't think that they realize that. And maybe this is me just justifying taking up my sister's time, but she, babysits a lot and hangs out with me and Evie a lot. And she's Evie's aunt. So of course she like loves her, but she's not someone who thinks of herself as a person who likes kids or wants kids. But I think she gets a lot out of being able to come over and like have dinner with us. It's not always fun to have dinner with a toddler because they can be very annoying, but I get, and I think she gets it too, this like blue zone sense of just like health, being able to like have a non-nuclear member of my family around constantly. Like, I think that I'm saying blue zones because I think they found out like they're like, those blue zone diets where it's like, oh, there's these certain areas where people live forever. And like, let's look at what they eat. Then they've sort of gone back and gone like, well, actually the food is good, but also the main thing is that they all hang out with each other all the time. Like they feel so connected in their community. They feel like they have a purpose. So that's why they live forever. Like not necessarily because they're just like having a lot of olive oil. Like, they like have a sense of community and purpose and like wake up to be with other people who ask them how they are and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh, that's really cool. I can't think of intergenerational spaces that aren't based on church.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I know there's a lot of like community centers or community work, but for like a regular asshole like me walking around, I wouldn't know where to go to be like,
let me have access to children and old people. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's so important because like as much as my mom's group was great, it was like there was no context in them because we were all doing it at the same time. So like we could learn stuff from the internet and each other, but like, and people would be like, well, my sister said this and my like older person said this, but like it's great to have moms in solidarity who are literally going through it at the same time. But you also really need those moms who did it 6 months ago and still remember, or a year ago, and have some perspective on it because it changes it so quickly. All the things that babies need and kids need, like it goes so quickly.
Oh my God, it makes my stomach hurt. It's a life phase that gives me so much stress. And like, I want to be an auntie. So I am an auntie. Or like Uncle Becky. That's me. That's my like vibe. But I think that has value. Exactly what we're talking about. Like, there's a place for everybody in a larger community.
Well, it's funny, people's different people's definition of motherhood. Like some people's definition of like motherhood is sacrifice. And I'm like, I hate that. Hated the definition of motherhood in the Barbie movie, which for the most part I loved. But do you remember this line? The creator of Barbie goes, "We mothers stay still so our daughters can look, or so our children can look back and see how far they've come." And I was like, what?
What? No. Exactly. I remember that and being like, that's a moment where like, I float out of my head and I go, oh, I'm not a mother. I can't have an opinion on that one.
Yeah. No, but you can, because I think it's like we all need to go like there's a lot of definitions of this. And like someone in my mother's group said something like mother is sacrifice or something. And like one of the like high powered like business moms in the group was like, no, I don't think so. Motherhood is providing, like, she's like, yeah, I'm sort of an 80s dad, but that's how I mother. Like, I'm great with that. I go make a lot of money to support my kid and I have a great time with them on nights and weekends. And they're in like great care, and someone who is like knows about developmental stuff more than me and takes care of him during the day. And I'm still a mother. I'm still as valuable as a mother. Mother is not just like, barefoot and bedraggled at home all the time.
Right. How do you today describe mother or motherhood?
It is very complicated. I think for me, what I mean when I talk about a mother is someone who's had the primary burden and privilege of seeing someone through their life. The primary. I don't think the only, because I do think fathers are super important. Aunts are super important. And I honestly don't think it's possible to be the sole, to be the only of one person. Like, and that's what we put on moms. Like we we put on that they should be your everything. And I think we do the same thing with the earth, which is why we call it Mother Earth. And we're like, let me just take and take and take and take. And if there's anything that the mother didn't provide to me, like, fuck her.
Yeah. Or like, all of a sudden, why aren't you providing now? Like, why aren't you?
Yeah.
Why are you having a forest fire?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotta teach you something. You gotta learn. You gotta be self-sufficient. You gotta give back. You gotta be your own member of society. You can't just suckle on the teat forever.
Oh my God. I'm really like, you're making me real emotional here. I love it.
It's really fun to talk about with someone who's not birthing person. And this is why I'm really excited about writing this show, is like, I want to have these conversations with people who they don't consider themselves mothers, because I do think everyone should consider themselves a mother. Putting mothers on a pedestal and then knocking them off of it is what we always do. And it's not helpful or sustainable for any of us.
Were there any specific resources?
Yeah, my child just came home and closed the door before she finds
me. Is there a pirate on the street?
That's our very excellent nanny, who is a gift from the gods. And another thing, did you ever see Melanie Linsky's? She won some award, I think, an Emmy or a Golden Globe, and she thanked her nanny.
I did see that, yeah.
Oh, I cried so much. And that's another thing, is like the invisibility of caretakers, I think, is like so problematic, both for the caretakers and for everyone else. That it's like, what are those like Bunraku puppeteers? And they make themselves invisible, but like, these caretakers make the world go round, you know? Like, not just moms, because a lot of times moms are 80s dads, and great. Like, we should be able to do that, you know?
be your own type of mom, yeah.
Yeah.
And I know for like adults who are taking care of their parents later in life, you can get paid. Like, even the government acknowledges that being a caretaker is
really not your own children.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. Oh man,
I see those ads all on the bus where it's like, do you want to get paid for taking care of a loved one? And I'm like, hell yes, I do.
Yeah, she's called my daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah, but seriously, it's such hypocrisy.
But then also, don't have an abortion.
Oh no.
You have to have that baby. We're not going to help you with it, but you have to have it.
We're just going so backwards.
It's not good.
It's not good. Were there any specific resources that you would recommend for postpartum depression or for parenting in general?
Well, like I said, the Motherhood Center is an amazing resource. But I think the best resource is having a plan and talking about it before you give birth. I think there's a book called Building Your Nest. It's a workbook called Building Your Nest by Kestrel Yates, I think is her name. It's like a workbook, and you just go like, okay, so what's going to be the plan? Like, how are we going to do this? Like, how am I going to feel supported? I think also the idea of it, this comes up in a lot of cultures, but there's like 40 Days and 40 Nights, I think, is a book. I might be butchering the title of it, but there's this idea of like the fourth trimester. So after you give birth, babies are not really fully ready to be out in the world. Like, their newborns are like, they should be in our womb longer, but like, we don't got that kind of space in there. So they come out and they're still like, and there's a lot of science about this right now, like that happiest baby on the block idea, that like you should recreate the environment of your womb for the next 2 or 3 months after they come out, because they really should still be in there. Like, they're not really fully sentient, and they like darkness and being confined and loud whooshing noises of your heartbeat. And that's like how newborns are best.
You need a couch. And
mothers of newborns are, in most cultures, like, you don't leave your house for 40 days. You don't bathe in like, you don't fully get yourself wet, because you might not be able to like get warm again. I mean, we're lucky now that we have like indoor plumbing and stuff, but like traditionally in most cultures, you just like were a baby too for the first 2 or 3 months after your baby is born.
Yeah.
And people just took care of you. Yeah. I mean, reading up on that, like getting a postpartum doula all of this stuff costs money. I can say that because like, I'm lucky to have those resources. I don't know how people do it without money. It's not built into our system. So it's really, it's messed up. But I think also asking people to help you, like, hey, you're my friend, could you set up a meal train for me and send out an email to people we know being like, I'll sign up to like send them a Grubhub this night so they don't have to cook, or I'll come over and clean, or just like not being shy to ask for it. Because I do think, again, going back to this idea of like people need to feel like they're part of a community and like they're needed. So we feel like, oh, I would put someone out if I asked them to come by and like hold my baby for half an hour while I took a nap. But like if you and I live next door to each other, Becky, like I would be like, can you come over and watch my baby for half an hour? And I believe that you would benefit from that. It wouldn't be necessarily a fun, convenient, sexy experience for you to hold my baby while I took a nap, but I think it would benefit you on some level. I don't know how to explain it. And again, maybe I'm just justifying this because I want that.
No, you're absolutely right. I think that too.
You would get something deeply back. So I think, just like asking people to help. Like, I think if you live in a building, being like, hey, I'm about to have a baby. Would anyone want to come over and hang out with me and like hold the baby so I can make coffee?
Yeah.
Stuff like that, just asking for it, and asking for it before the thing comes out of your body and you are out of
can't think of anything else, right? Yeah. And these are clear examples. I know even with grief, people are like, I don't know what I should do. Should I do the meal train? Should I ask if they need help? But we'll ask in ways that are like, hey, if you need anything, let me know.
Yeah.
But like to be able to be like, I have all Saturday. Do you want me to come over and stay with you for
something up?
Offer something.
And if it's going to be you bodily in a birthing person's space, keep it short. Time is very different with a newborn because you're on these like constant cycles. So like if the baby's sleeping, you want to be sleeping. And I think people don't get that concept. We're all on the 9 to 5, like linear male clock.
Yeah.
And the newborn clock is like very different. You want to offer something like, can I drop off dinner tonight? Or is there a week tonight where you don't have a dinner plan that would be better? Or like, can you text me when the baby's up and I can hold the baby while you do some stuff? And then I'll leave as soon as the baby falls asleep. The last thing you want is, and this happens all the time to women who've just given birth, is like, then they also become hostesses. And they have to like hold it together. I mean, a lot of my Jewish women friends have, the bris right after, and they have to host a party in their house while their son gets his penis chopped off. And it's this beautiful thing. But if you don't have all these people being like, okay, now everyone leave, please. And let me get rid of the brunch that we've all had. Like, you need so many people to facilitate that for you. So you can just be like, and now I'm going to go pass out. Like that was like, and that's not built in like the community of that, of like the like council of elders who's gonna organize all of that stuff for you is not there. So you have to, that's part of the labor of being a mother, is you have to be like, if this is gonna work, I need you to be on bagel duty and you to be the one who's gonna clean up.
Yeah. Oh, and even that is like producing, just like
totally. The executive functioning, the executive task. I love when people talk about this, that like being a mother is like being an executive and also doing all the other work of all the employees. Like even if you have a partner who is like willing to do everything that you need, you still have to think of what needs to be done, communicate that, and then have someone do it and then follow up that it's been done, like.
I'm tired just thinking about it. I had to get up, put a dog outside, and that was enough.
But it's so cool that you think about that. I think most people, until it happens to them, they go like, well, everyone else has done it. I mean, my grandma did it with 5 kids. Like, I'll do it somehow. And then it hits you. And I think that's where a lot of depression comes in. I think that they just came out with a study on this, that it's really not so much the chemicals. I mean, the hormones and stuff are horrible, but it's really about the expectation meeting the overwhelming burden. And if you don't have community support, you get depressed because you're like, I don't know how, this task is impossible. I cannot care for myself and this baby and my house and a job, and it's just too much.
Oh yeah, Andrea had to homeschool all of her kids in a bus that they lived in because the religion that they were following said you should not own a home. Just what? 4 kids in a bus? Come on.
I mean, at what point does a bus become a home? It's such an extreme version of what we do to all women and birthing people, where it's like, well, make it work, honey.
Yeah.
I also love that thing where someone said, you got this, mama, is like the motherhood version of like not giving people a raise, but giving them a pizza party. Like, We don't need to be told we got this, mama. Thank you. Yes,
Thanks.
I know I got this. I don't want to got this.
Yeah, I don't want to got this. Yeah.
Other people doing good work that you want to shout out today?
For artist moms, there's PAL, the Parent Artist Advocacy League. And then within them, there's, it's like Mamas Palmas. I forget what it is. But they basically, if you look up the Parent Artist Advocacy League, you can find the mamas on Instagram. And there's a Zoom support group for artist moms. I think It's like the first Friday morning of every month. And it's been like such a lifeline to me to find other moms who are trying to do art at the same time.
Awesome. Do you have a lullaby or something that you sing that you share with your daughter?
Tons. But there's actually one that I don't actually sing to my daughter that much, but I heard on another podcast, this woman wrote this song to sort of like calm herself when she was with her kids.
Oh.
And I'm trying to remember now. It's so beautiful. And I wish I could credit the woman who wrote it. I heard it on the Moonwise podcast. But this woman wrote this song to sort of like calm herself when she was with her children, which is something we need so much. Like our nervous systems are fucking fried all the time. And that's another thing we don't talk about is like, how do you calm yourself? Like you have to be calm to calm a child. So how do you mother yourself? But the song goes like this. Let the pool of love we have gathered here grow wings and fly far and near from the depths of our hearts to the furthest star. Let our love bless everyone. And it's sort of like a mantra. You can just like sing it all the time.
Lovely. Well, again, thank you so much.
I could do this. I could do this podcast every day for 15 million hours. I love talking about this stuff. So thank you so much for having me on.
Oh my gosh. Of course. Thank you for being open and free. If you'd like more information on postpartum psychosis and depression, please go to postpartum.net. There are additional links to mental health, safety, and reproductive resources in the show notes, as well as links to information mentioned in this show. You can listen to the full album of songs for the Ballad of Dena and Andrea on Spotify or Apple, wherever you find your music. Songs were written by me, Becky Poole, and produced by award-winning multi-instrumentalist, songwriter, and incredible music producer, Abby Posner. Find her at abbyposner.com. Theme also composed and played by Abby. Special thank yous to Evan Mosier for audio editing and mixing, to Andrew and the team at Voice Tracks West in Los Angeles, and to you for listening. Please join me in future episodes as we explore more themes around the Ballad of Dena and Andrea.